welcome to the third block of the third Trash Talk on the topic Steel, Circularity at its best. In this third block, we will see how we can transform the steel industry to a sustainable industry. We have heard that one of the main impacts of steel comes from the reduction of iron ore to iron. Ichiro, can we do anything about these CO2 impacts that arise at this stage?
Yeah, one of the promising way is reduced by hydrogen. When we think about the reduction of iron ore by hydrogen, then that has to have additional heat. So therefore, the one of the problem is how to add the additional heat. And then they would have additional hydrogen. Or another possibility is, as I said, the carbon is a good friend with iron. Therefore, still carbon is used for reduction, but the emitted CO2 is reduced by hydrogen and come back to the reduction agent. The kind of cyclic use of carbon as an agent, that would be one of the possibility.
Mm-hmm. And we do not only need heat, we also need hydrogen. Where can we get this hydrogen from?
That is a big issue. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Who wants to answer?
I think this is the main challenge, because we need green hydrogen. And hydrogen with water, and via electrolysis we can divide water into hydrogen and oxygen. But for doing that, you need a lot of electricity. And that electricity has to come from renewable green electricity. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. And at the moment, this, I would say, is he was referring to, hydrogen is definitely a solution for the reduction of the iron ore. That will work, we understand that. Of course, that has also to be optimized and improved, but we understand it. So upscaling is still necessary, but we understand the metallurgical processes. But green hydrogen from green electricity is the major challenge, and that cannot be also to reasonable costs. And that cannot be solved by one industry by itself. So there, all the industry leaders have to play together. We need the grid, which has to be very stable, very strong, so that we can work with the renewable energy, because it's changing. Today we have a lot, tomorrow we don't have really nothing. So how this is actually the main question marks.
Well, I would like to add another aspect, which is kind of I'm thinking quite often in these times, because hydrogen is now the thing we use for everything, and because it's super intriguing that the emissions are water. I mean, how amazing is that? Mm-hmm. But I'm like wondering, I mean, it's hydrogen, and the handling of hydrogen is really a huge safety issue. So what I'm wondering is, where are we going then if we especially go into big scale? Where are we going with plant safety and working safety? I think, yeah, for the people who work there and also around, because even my hydrogen, I mean, if this starts to explode, then everything is more or less gone, and we have this problem with hydrogen that it's self-igniting when it's released. So, and you never have 100% tight machinery. So I just wonder if there is, or if anybody of you has some insight into this issue, because I'm a studied process engineer, so this is for me kind of I don't want to put my hands on that, to be honest, even though it's very interesting from the process itself. Yeah,
you're totally right, and there are a lot of investigations going on, because the idea is to produce, let's say, the hydrogen if we have enough electricity made from wind energy. Let's say in the North Sea, there we have a lot of wind, and then we make the hydrogen via electrolysis. We don't need the hydrogen there, we have to bring it down to the industrial areas. So that could work. At the moment they are discussing, can we add 15, 10, 20% to the pipelines? So people investigating that. We have no clear answers for that at the moment. But these are what I was trying to say. This is the big questions which has to be solved. That cannot be solved by the steel industry itself. That has to be solved by all the stakeholders involved. and also by the government, bringing the right things together so that we are allowed to do that.
So there are still challenges and
Absolutely.
several things to solve. Which timeframes are we speaking about?
I was just about to ask the same
No one
question.
will answer that question.
That you can answer this question because this is written down, at least in Europe, in the frame program. And the frame program is saying that by 2050 we should be in Europe CO2 neutral. This is written down. Question mark.
Yeah, but I mean, it's written down in the plan.
Yeah,
Come on, you know exactly what happens quite often to plans, especially if they're politically derived. So, so the question is this realistic? What do I mean? I think you're the expert on production here.
Realistic, but the thing is, I think we have to work on the things, and we shouldn't discuss it really. Is it realistic or not? Because when you're starting to postpone it, it will never happen. It will never happen. So there has to be a certain pressure that we're going in the direction. We would understand how it works, but I agree. At the moment, the goals 2050 is very, very ambitious.
But when we
It
think
would be
about
doable if everyone. Sorry for
no.
I think it is doable if everyone would, in German saying, if everyone pulls the rope in the same direction, I think it could work. But this is the big question, if that happens.
But I think we should decide at this moment because of the lifetime of facilities. When we think about the shifting from blast furnace to the hydrogen reduction, the lifetime of the blast furnace is quite longer. So which means that we cannot create a new blast furnace when we stop the blast furnace until the 2050. So we have to decide now if it becomes possible.
If we do not produce primary steel, but produce steel from secondary resources, we do not need hydrogen. But you mentioned before that we do need electricity. So does it come back to the same problem?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And also, I think when we look in the future, the steel demand is still growing. Like we had this point already in the last section, but when we focus only on Europe, we see a saturation level, so it's stagnating sort of. But on the global level, it's rising because we have developing countries and they need to build up their infrastructure. Infrastructure is really steel intensive, so we do not see that steel demand is stagnating, so it will continue to grow. And therefore also we need, well, obviously also primary material because we have to basically build up our stock of steel. And so secondary steel, of course, is a solution to reduce the environmental impact, but we are still dependent on primary material on a global level.
And once we have the steel, when it comes to production of semi-finished products or products, are there any improvement potentials there?
I think, especially when it comes to the steel production itself and also the semi-products, I think these are quite well optimized. So we have very good fabrication yields. I think the World Steel Community is something like 98% of material efficiency. So we have barely losses, but I think the diversity of products afterwards and also the fabrication processes afterwards, I think we should take those into account and think about the product design and about the fabrication yields, more intensified product use, for instance, lightweight design, to really rethink those steel products and to reduce the steel demand wherever it's possible by retaining the same service of the product. So it's also not only about the steel production, but also about the fabrication and the manufacturers who produce the final products and the final goods.
I think you also deal with quantifying or assessing the function of a material. So to not only assess a material on a quantitative basis, but based on the function it may provide. So that maybe offers potentials for rethinking of products, as you said.
Yeah, actually, that is very true. And at this moment, one of the issues is less communication in the supply chain. So the assemblers are just purchased the material and they just require the properties. So they do not care about how to make materials and how cannot fulfill the properties by such kind of chemical compositions. So if they communicate each other, then it would have some solution to fulfill the functions provided by the final product. Because one of the final, our demand is our needs. So when we could meet with our needs, then that would be fine. So therefore, the more communication in supply chain would be one of the possibilities, I think.
And between material choice and product design. Do you see any changes in steel products in future? Are any developments happening?
There's always development going on, no question, especially to also again to fulfill the requirements for saving energy, for example, high strength steels. So if I have a very strong steel with high yield and tensile strengths, I can make my part smaller and lighter, and I don't have to use the same energy to come from A to B. So there are a lot of developments in the direction high strength steels, and a lot of other developments as well. Yes, development is always going on.
Yes, so we have seen many options. Do you see any further options that we have not mentioned yet to transform the steel industry, or are we good with this? Are these sufficient to reach carbon neutral steel? It's a difficult question before the end.
I think what we really didn't discuss in detail is where is the electricity, the green electricity coming from? This is the big question mark. And if I may, and Sabine knows the figure because we were at the same work group, if I just quote the figures for Austria, only quoting the figures, and please support me if I'm getting my figures wrong.
I'll try.
At the moment, the need for electricity in Austria is 70 terawatt hours. Tera is a figure with 9 zeros behind. That doesn't matter. And Austria is already in a lucky situation that we get a lot of electricity out of renewable energies. That means water and everything. I think 85% like that. To make the whole transformation, not only in the steel industry, also in the car industry, cement industry and so on, we need a figure which is 3 times bigger as we have at the moment. So 210 terawatt hours.
And it's not covered by the current renewable energy plan.
And this is where should that come from? And as I was saying, it is doable, but it needs really a total strength of all parties involved in the whole situation to get it going. And that cannot be done. And then again, we need the energy at reasonable costs because we are living in a competitive world. There's no question. So this all things is doable, as I was saying, but cannot be done by one industry segment or by one company. That has to be a common work which all of us have to do. And everyone has to pay his contribution to this great goal.
If I may add on this, I think also if we just widen a little bit the scope, it's not only about steel, but about the whole system at the moment. There are so many technologies starting or are in development, like also the hydrogen iron reduction. But the thing is, we are all talking about huge amounts of energy, and we are acting most of the time like there is so much energy we can just use and which is just there. And I think you put your finger there in the wound because it's just a huge problem that we just don't have it. And the capacities are not even planned by any politics, or at least in Austria, that is the problem. And I think this is anyway something we really have to think about.
If I may add something on that issue as well, is that we also have to see it on a global level, because what happens also with carbon pricing in Europe, we had a so-called carbon leakage, so that it just shifts the industry. So if we have here a lot of effort and the costs are increasing, for instance, because we can invest into sustainable technologies, And there are different countries in other worlds which can produce still, with older technologies or more carbon intensive and energy intensive production routes, we will experience more carbon leakage. So it will only shift the demand and the production.
Yeah, true. In the near future, the big demand of steel is located in South Asian countries and African countries. So we have to think about how to provide the steel to construct their infrastructure. So that is a big demand in the upcoming 2 decades or 3 decades.
In the growing economies.
Yes.
Yeah, and with electricity, as you mentioned, it's not only an issue for steel, but we have solutions for many other products as well and processes, but for many of them we need renewable electricity. So we came to an even bigger topic than steel maybe, which is energy. Maybe there will be a trash talk on this topic at some point, because we already reached the end of this trash talk on steel. We have gotten some background on steel, learned how steel can be produced in different ways, how secondary steel can be used or can not be used sometimes, and seen how we could transform primary and secondary production. And with this, I would like to thank my guests very much for the very interesting insights into steel. And you will get a small present from the Vienna Institute for Resources and Waste to organize this talk. Maybe you can pass it on.
Thank you very much. The green is for the man and the yellow for
really?
the... I don't know.
Now you get the yellow
Schön, danke vielmals.
Sehr gerne, danke für die Teilnahme.
Du wirst Spaß machen.